Verse 20, and those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up in Gilgal. And then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan River on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we crossed over. That all the peoples of the earth, so not just Israel, but all the people of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. Gilgal is where they set up these 12 stones as a memorial. Those 12 stones are still there in Hosea's day as a memorial. Some believe they're even there in the New Testament because John the Baptist is baptizing at this same location. And remember, the religious leaders come out to investigate, and he says, you brood of vipers, who warns you to flee from the wrath to come? And don't say we have Abraham from our father as our father, because God can raise up a witness from these stones. What stones? Well, it could be these stones from Joshua 4. We can't say for sure. This is where they set it up. That happens at Gilgal, their first camp. They set up the memorial. The memorial is still there in Hosea's day. And then in chapter 5, the next thing that Joshua does in chapter 5, verses 2 to 9, is all of the men that were born in the wilderness wandering are circumcised, because they didn't circumcise them in the wilderness. And so the next thing they do at Gilgal is they recommit themselves to the covenant that the Lord made with Abraham and his descendants through circumcision. That's in chapter 5, verses 2 through 9. Then in verse 10, look at verse 10 of chapter 5. In verses 10 and 11, they keep the Passover. Verse 10, now the children of Israel camped in Gilgal, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at twilight on the plains of Jericho, and they ate of the produce of the land on the day after the Passover, unleavened bread and parched grain on the very same day. This is the first Passover in the Promised Land at Gilgal. And they eat grain that is from the Promised Land. Then in verse 12, look at verse 12. The manna ceases. After 40 years of eating manna every day, manna cotti, manna chip cookies, all of it, right? Then the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land, and the children of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. The manna ceases. The children of Israel can finally enjoy the abundance of the land, the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. They finally get to enjoy that. All this happened at Gilgal. Gilgal is a special place in Israel's spiritual history. And it's a special place in their relationship with the Lord. Some important things happened there. But go back to Hosea chapter 9. In Hosea's day, listen, Gilgal, it was a center of idol worship. It's a center of idol worship. At the same place where all those things happened, where they first camped when they came into the land, they recommitted themselves to through circumcision, where they shared the first Passover together in the land, where the manna ceased, and they finally could enjoy God's blessings in the promise. Now it's a center of idol worship. They've still got the pile of stones there, and they're worshiping idols. And so, verse 15, all their wickedness is in Gilgal, of all places. For there, God says, I hated them. I hated them for their idolatry. Because of the evil of their deeds, I will drive them from my house. I will love them no more. All their princes are rebellious. Ephraim is stricken. Their root is dried up. They shall bear no fruit. It's beyond repair. It's beyond saving now. Yes, were they to bear children, I would kill the darlings of their womb. My God will cast them away because they did not obey him, and they shall be wanderers among the nation. This is exactly what happened to Israel. They became wanderers among the nations. And God told them that back in Deuteronomy, before they even came into the land, that he would scatter them throughout the nations if they turned to idols. And they remained scattered throughout the nations, just wandering through among the nations. Even in the New Testament, if you're taking notes, when you look at the opening verse of the book of James and 1st and 2nd Peter, those books are written to, it says, the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad. Right? So even in the New Testament, they're still scattered abroad. And it's really just in recent history, 1948, when Israel became a nation again for the first time in 2,000 years, that they no longer were wandering. They had their land back. They were a nation again. So we've seen the fulfillment of this prophecy that is given here at the end of chapter 9, verse 17. The Israelites have wandered among the nations for thousands of years until they regained their homeland again in 1948, which just shows us that God's word is trustworthy and his promises always come to pass.